Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer sitting in tonight for Dan Rather. For the first time in a long time, some fairly upbeat remarks in both Washington and Moscow today on the chances of improving superpower relations. In Washington, President Reagan told some reporters he thinks the Soviet leadership has had a real change in attitude. Bill Plant reports.
Administration sources tell CBS News that Soviet leader Gorbachev neither accepted nor rejected the invitation delivered by Vice President Bush yesterday to visit the United States. What that means, they say, is that they expect to hear from the Soviets probably soon, and they are hopeful tonight that the new Soviet leader will accept Mr. Reagan's invitation to come to the U.S. for a summit meeting. The president himself seemed more than usually optimistic today on the subject of dealing with the Soviets.
Is that the Soviet Union is in a different frame of mind than they've been in the past, that they are back at the negotiating table on arms reductions because they recognize a hard, cold fact, and that is that the United States isn't going to unilaterally disarm in the face of their military buildup.
While the president is saying he looks forward to dealing with Gorbachev, others in the White House are trying to dampen summit fever, warning that it's a long road to the top. But they don't mind at least talking about a summit here because they don't want the president to fall behind the Soviets in the public relations war. Bill Plant, CBS News, the White House.
West German Chancellor Helmut Kohl also seemed encouraged after his meeting with Gorbachev in Moscow today. He said that the Soviet leader told him he opposed European participation in the Reagan administration's Star Wars defense research plan. But Kohl says that Gorbachev did not take his heart aligned, as the Soviets have taken previously, when they said that such participation would jeopardize an arms control agreement. The Soviet and American arms negotiators completed the second round of their talks in Geneva today. More on that now from Tom Fenton.
Promptly at 11, the Soviets walked in and posed for cameramen. Suave Viktor Karpov, who will deal with the huge arsenals of intercontinental missiles, Yulik Vitsinski, the controversial area of defense and space weapons, Alexei Abukov, medium-range missiles. The Americans are anxious to make progress in any or all of these areas. The Soviets insist at the outset there can be no deals at all unless the United States stops research on a space-based defense system. Not a promising beginning for a major attempt to curb the arms race, but the two sides seemed eager to get down to business. An American official banished cameramen with a countdown.
3, 2, 1. Thank you very much.
At this point, American negotiator Maynard Glickman was heard to say, "Good thing he didn't say blast off." Well, it's the countdown to a long effort, one that could take years. What American negotiators are trying to sell the Soviets is a revolution in strategic thinking, a radical shift from deterrence based on fear of mutual destruction to a bold new concept of a world in which nuclear weapons are obsolete. The Reagan plan seeks deep cuts in offensive missiles, while both sides build up space shields until they're almost impenetrable. The Soviets warned they would react by building more missiles to overwhelm the American Star Wars defense. The American reply is that it would be cheaper for the U.S. to add to its space defense than for the USSR to add to its missile force. Critics of Star Wars fear the end result could simply be another arms race. Today's session ended after 2 hours of discussions described as serious and businesslike, and this comment from the chief Soviet negotiator.
That's the start only.
Tom Fenton, CBS News, Geneva.
The State Department ordered most of the American diplomats in Lebanon to leave the country today, as the situation there appeared to be growing even more dangerous than it has been in the past. The evacuation order came as the Jamal government found itself facing a rebellion by some former supporters, and as Shiite Muslims level new threats against Americans. We have a report from Bill McLaughlin at the State Department.
Increased terrorist threats convinced the United States today to mount a secret pre-dawn evacuation of American diplomats from Beirut. Reports from Cyprus and Washington indicate that 3 U.S. helicopters flew 18 American officials from Lebanon to the Cypriot port of Larnaca. The evacuation was first announced at the State Department.
We have moved some embassy personnel out of Lebanon as a temporary measure because of the current unsettled situation in the East Beirut area.
There were 190 U.S. diplomats in Lebanon almost 2 years ago, when in April 1983, the U.S. Embassy in West Beirut was bombed by Shiite Muslim terrorists linked to Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini. The same terrorist groups are believed responsible for the September 1984 bombing of the embassy annex in East Beirut. The terrorists had promised to drive the U.S. out of Lebanon, and in part, they have been successful. It's believed the latest threats leave just over a dozen American diplomats left in Lebanon, working out of the ambassador's residence in the hills overlooking Beirut. Bill McLaughlin, CBS News, the State Department.
Want to build a super day? Then start with the one great taste that makes a super bowl of cereal. Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
Just think of crispy golden flakes.
Delicious, crunchy flakes of corn.
So pure and simple, just can't wait.
Low in sugar, loaded with vitamins and iron.
So good for you, don't hesitate.
For a super bowl of our most nutritious corn flakes ever.
What a super bowl. Have yourself a super bowl. Kellogg's Corn Flakes. Super taste, super good. Kellogg's Corn Flakes.
Good morning.
Aetna Life and Casualty knows that all employees are not all alike. That's why we pioneered flexible benefit plans for our clients. So instead of carbon copy life insurance, he can double his coverage at the group rate. Instead of Me Too Medical, she can raise her deductible and put the difference in dental. Instead of duplicating the husband's coverage, she can shift premiums into tax-deferred savings. Aetna, helping business respond to the changing pace of America.
Aetna, we're glad we met you.
Food and Drug Administration today gave Penn State's Hershey Medical Center permission to implant an artificial heart designed by the center to keep patients alive until a natural heart transplant can be arranged. The spokesman said there are no immediate plans to use the heart. Meanwhile, the National Institutes of Health today issued a report on the widely debated operation last October when a baboon's heart was transplanted into the infant called Baby Faye. Jerry Bowen has that.
There were many troubling questions raised by the incredible case of Baby Faye, the case of the infant who survived for 20 days last fall with a transplanted baboon heart. Whether the highly experimental procedure at the Seventh-day Adventist Loma Linda University had been properly scrutinized, and whether the baby's parents were well informed of what lay ahead. Surgeon Leonard Bailey always maintained the parents understood.
Having looked back over it, there's not anything I would change in that regard.
And the NIH investigation made public today generally supports the surgeon and the school, citing only what are termed several shortcomings with this document, the consent form signed by the mother, whose last name is concealed. The document states long-term survival is possible with the baboon heart. NIH says that's an overstatement. The document states human hearts are not available and recommends the baboon heart. NIH says the document should explain if a search for a human heart is to be made, and if not, why. But the NIH concludes the parents understood their options and that Dr. Bailey's experiment had been properly reviewed. Bailey's work with baboon hearts received support this week from another pioneer transplant surgeon, Dr. Jack Copeland, who last week used an unapproved mechanical heart. He says animal hearts might also be used on a stopgap basis.
Xenograft organs may be of some use in this regard, and certainly work in that area needs to be continued.
A Loma Linda University spokesman says the research continues. A second human operation is possible. And the NIH says tonight there's nothing standing in the way. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Doctors in Louisville today said that mechanical heart patient William Schroeder won't be able to attend his son's wedding this weekend. They said that the trip to Jasper, Indiana, might jeopardize Schroeder's recovery from the artificial heart implant that he received November 25th. A toxic gas leak that injured 10 shoppers near a Union Carbide plant last Thursday in West Virginia is under investigation tonight by several state and federal agencies. Among the things being investigated, why it took so long to pinpoint the source of the chemical leak and why it took investigators so long to get on the case. Susan Spencer reports.
Federal investigators huddled with company officials at the South Charleston plant today, a week after a mixture containing 100 pounds of poisonous methyl oxide leaked into the atmosphere. It was 2 days after the accident before Union Carbide confirmed the dangerous nature of the leak.
Problem was we had to, A, confirm it, but B, we had to find out how much and what. And that took a lot of time.
An internal Union Carbide memo in 1983 outlined the dangers from methyl oxide, a suspected cancer agent which also can cause blood, skin, and respiratory problems. But nobody needed a memo to know that last week when the chemical vapors drifted from the plant to rain gently down on this shopping center, sending 4 people to the hospital and leaving 6 others with minor complaints.
A bit queasiness. One of the other fellows here, he had irritation in the eyes, the nose, and he had quite an upset stomach.
The company today said operator error probably caused the accident. Local officials worry about whether there could be another.
The company has to come up with better detection methods to alert everybody when they have a problem.
This plant is only 5 miles from the Institute West Virginia plant, which has had problems with leaks of the more deadly methyl isocyanate, problems a congressional committee is investigating.
We're getting a pattern from Union Carbide of saying one thing, denying it, saying another thing, denying it, changing their story.
While Union Carbide struggles with this latest blow to its image, the Environmental Protection Agency is struggling with some questions as well. Chief among them, why did it take the EPA 5 days to decide to look into this? Susan Spencer, CBS News, Washington.
The FBI today announced that one-time FBI agent Dan Mitrione has pleaded guilty to drug dealing. The former agent was charged with stealing cocaine seized in an FBI sting operation and then selling it for about $850,000. In Los Angeles, aerospace engineer Thomas Patrick Cavanaugh pleaded guilty today to espionage. He admitted that he tried to sell the Soviet Union information about so-called stealth technology that's designed to make U.S. bombers capable of fooling enemy radar. Cavanaugh said that he did it because he needed the money. His asking price, $55,000. CBS News in Guadalajara reports that Mexican police raided a desert ranch in Sonora today, where they hope to find the prime suspect in the killing of U.S. Drug Enforcement agent Enrique Camarena Salazar. But when the police got to the place, which one agent described as a fortified castle, the suspect, reputed drug dealer Rafael Caro Quintero, had escaped. And in Guadalajara, 30 suspects are in custody tonight, including 12 Mexican police, for questioning about drug-related activities. One of the arrested policemen, the man in charge of investigating cases of missing Americans.
I'm one woman with 2 bra sizes. Each side is a little different. I'm also one woman who loves the soft feeling of cotton next to my skin. And now I'm one lucky woman, because Playtex introduced the new Nobody's Perfect bra in soft, comfortable cotton blend. The special frame stretches where you need more, lies flat when you need less, and the cups stay firm for support. I love the way it fits, and I love the way it feels. The new cotton Nobody's Perfect from Playtex. Buy now, save $2.50.
The promise of America is opportunities, not guarantees. That challenge lit a fire under countless entrepreneurs who started businesses that boomed and built the country. Today, I still see enormous opportunities in the hundreds of small to mid-sized companies whose new ideas, new jobs, and new technologies will continue to build America. At First Jersey Securities, we specialize in discovering such emerging growth companies for today's investors with vision. First Jersey Securities, come grow with us.
The Senate Budget Committee tonight voted final approval for a new federal budget with something to irritate almost everyone, from President Reagan, who didn't want cuts in his defense spending increase, to students who didn't want cuts in the college loan program, to special Social Security recipients who didn't want to lose their cost of living increases. Phil Jones reports.
The Republican chairman, Pete Domenici, is calling the committee's decision to make deeper cuts in defense spending and to freeze Social Security cost of living allowances courageous. But with older Americans today, a one-year Social Security freeze proposal was viewed as a political double-cross.
It's a lie. I mean, they told us all along that we would not be affected, that our Social Security would not be affected, and it is affected.
Freezing the Social Security cost of living adjustment will actually throw more than 500,000 elderly people who are not there now into poverty.
At the White House, spokesman Larry Speakes reacted by calling Social Security a flashpoint, a red flag issue created by the press. The president has said he would look at a freeze if there is a congressional mandate. Democrats think they have a political issue. Many Republicans disagree.
It would cost the average senior citizen about $18 a month next year.
The notion that somehow Social Security is a sacred cow is simply not in the hearts of even the recipients.
The Senate Budget Committee action would freeze most domestic programs. This trimming would result in a savings of about $30 billion. Defense would only grow with inflation, a savings of nearly $11 billion in 1986. This clearly did not please the president.
Defense budget isn't something that you sit down as you do with some other programs and say, well, here, let's spend so much or let's reduce so much. It's determined by what the other fellow's doing.
This is only the first round, but it appears that a dramatic signal has gone out. Some of those sacred cows of the past, like defense and Social Security, are no longer. Phil Jones, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
How do you spell relief? Well, at the Securities and Exchange Commission, they've discovered you don't spell it E-D-G-A-R. And therein lies a report from Bruce Morton.
The Securities and Exchange Commission, which regulates corporations and finance, has a new computer named Edgar. It's one of those cute acronyms. Stands for, well, ask SEC Chairman John Shad what it stands for.
It stands for Electronic Data.
No.
Electronic Data Gathering and Retrieval. Let me do it straight.
Never mind. What does Edgar do? It's supposed to keep electronic track of the 6 million pieces of paper the SEC gets every year. Microfiche does that now. But today, if you use Edgar, you still wind up waiting for a microfiche copy. And you can't find a particular fact unless you already know which page of the report it's on.
We don't have a search capability right now to get it. I would have to know where it is.
The Edgar project as a whole is a lot more than just a filing cabinet.
Maybe, but investigators from the General Accounting Office say the pilot project is over budget, behind schedule, and doesn't do what it was supposed to do.
It's never been intended to analyze.
Wait a minute, then what does the A stand for?
No, that's the A's for and. I thought the A was for and. You're right, it is analysis.
But at a congressional hearing today, Representative Jerry Sikorsky said Edgar doesn't gather, or analyze, or retrieve.
We should use an R for rip-off, an M for major rip-off, and what we have, Mr. Chairman, is a system that should not be called Edgar, but rather Mr. Ed.
SEC Chairman Shad said the hearing was unfair. The congressman said the computer was an overpriced lemon.
Now, you want to get to the point of the boondoggle you have down there called Edgar, or do you want to attack us?
I think that the characterizations you're using and you've been using all day are inaccurate and inappropriate, and I'd like very much to respond to them, but I would also appreciate the opportunity to make an opening statement without interruption.
Will Edgar find happiness in Washington? Will the committee nail the SEC to the wall? One SEC staffer said philosophically, running a pilot project, we've gained a lot of experience in 5 months. They also have a computer that, whatever its other qualities, can spell its name in different colors. Let Congress match that. Bruce Morton, CBS News, Washington.
It's tax time, and you sit here alone and struggle for what? $1 or $2? Depending on your income, you could save hundreds, even thousands of dollars next year by sitting here right now with a financial planner from IDS. A written IDS plan lets you see the big picture and attack your taxes head on. Shouldn't you be sitting here? IDS. It could be the best investment you'll ever make.
Look, Almost Home has a new improved chocolate chip cookie.
I like the old.
This is new. It tastes even more homemade.
I like the old.
There's more chocolate chips.
I like the old.
This is better.
Almost Home's new improved chocolate chip cookie with 20% more chips.
Here.
I like the old. It was my favorite. I like the new.
On this broadcast last night, Walter Cronkite reported from the defeated capital of Saigon, now called Ho Chi Minh City. Well, tonight he reports from Hanoi, the victorious capital in the war for Vietnam. But there's little evidence in Hanoi of victory from the war that ended a decade ago, as he tells us in our continuing series of reports on Vietnam Remembered.
This may be one of the world's most depressing capitals, and certainly one of the world's most destitute. 10 years after they defeated the South Vietnamese and unified the country, 31 years after they chased the French out, the communist regime has failed miserably to put the nation's economy on anything like a viable basis. It is a bicycle economy in a computer world. It lacks tools and skills and raw materials to lift itself out of the mire, to widen its third-class, two-lane principal highway along the 110 kilometers between Hanoi and its port of Haiphong. 10,000 laborers cutting mud bricks from one side of a bank and passing them hand by hand to build the road's foundation on the other side. The foreman tells me with pride that it will take them just 2 months to cover 2 kilometers, a mile and a quarter this way. A bulldozer or two could do the job in a week, but Vietnam has few bulldozers and not enough gasoline for them. Public transport in Hanoi is unbelievably decrepit. Agricultural practices are primitive. Again, no tools, and the cattle are four-hoofed cadavers. The poverty is overwhelming. Average income is barely $1 a month at the black market rate. Basic items of food and clothing are available on a sporadic ration at state stores. In the free market, pork costs a week and a half's wages per pound, 2 weeks' wages for a live chicken or duck, 1 week for an orange, almost a year's wages for the almost essential bicycle. There are some surprises here. There's very little visible bomb damage from the American attacks, and the people are particularly friendly to Americans. For a forthcoming CBS News documentary, we brought John McCain back to Hanoi. He's Arizona's Republican congressman now. He was shot down in a raid on the power plant in the center of the city, was captured and spent 6 years in captivity here. Yet old residents who remembered well that raid greeted him with kind words and a warm handshake. And a surprise, too, is that the people, for all of this grinding poverty, do not seem unhappy. On the street, they are animated, smile frequently, and laugh heartily. These people of Hanoi have the trappings of civilization, but virtually none of the amenities. And there's not much likelihood of change as long as their communist government spends 55% of its pitiful income supporting the world's 4th largest army and fights a costly war in neighboring Kampuchea. There goes most of the $1 billion a year Vietnam is said to get from its patron, the Soviet Union. To the outsider, the situation here seems so hopeless. It is said that China is a sleeping giant. Vietnam seems comatose. This is Walter Cronkite, CBS News, Hanoi.
When someone's had a less than perfect day, send them a pick-me-up bouquet from FTD. Leo, are you in there?
No.
Leo, everybody fumbles the ball.
Not 5 times.
Got a surprise for you. A pick-me-up bouquet from Lois in Des Moines.
5 times in the same quarter.
It's flowers in a rainbow coffee mug and a reusable tote bag so you won't drop it.
Ha ha.
I'll just leave it here for you.
Okay. Merlin, I can't get out.
Lift someone's spirits with an FTD pick-me-up bouquet.
Hey, Merlin, are you holding the door?
Now you've got style, fun.
Light and elegant entrees like shrimp creole, beef burgundy, lasagna Florentine, all less than 300 calories.
Chic, taste, grace. Ooh, nice.
It's great for your image.
Recently, the Chrysler LeBaron GTS challenged 2 of Europe's most celebrated sports sedans to a performance showdown. In critical tests, LeBaron GTS decisively beat the Audi 5000S and BMW 520AE, and it will keep on beating them.
On college campuses around the country these days, steps are being taken to reduce the drinking of alcohol by students. That's partly because more states are raising the drinking age to 21, but it's also due to a heightened awareness about the dangers of drinking to excess. As collegians take their spring break, the message already seems to be heard on the beaches of Florida. James McManus reports.
If you're wondering where on earth this country's college generation is headed, well, much of it is headed for Daytona Beach, Florida.
Yeah, basically party hardy. That's all everybody does.
You are looking at spring break's first wave. Perhaps 40,000 students already in town, and Daytona is braced for another 350,000 in the weeks to come.
They do a little drinking, a little frisbee playing, and mostly just have a good time.
To be honest, the students do more than a little drinking. It's estimated the Daytona Beach crowd puts down about 2.5 million bottles of beer every week, something to contemplate in the cold gray light of dawn. But a lot of people here insist the kids are drinking less. In fact, a University of Florida study says that college students are using less alcohol, and a casual beachfront survey seems to confirm that.
I'm not drinking much.
I'm going to gain weight. There's all kinds of commercials on television. Don't drink and drive.
And more commercials are on the way. Starting this weekend, the Anheuser-Busch Beer Company is moving with the trend.
Good friends and good sense make for a good time. So when it's party time, know when to say when.
It's serious business. 2 partying students died here recently in falls from hotel balconies, despite security efforts to control dangerous pranks.
You have a responsibility of making sure that they get back home to Mama in one piece.
Daytona Beach also hopes Mama will send the kids back next year in one piece, because the college students who celebrate here spend an estimated $80 million in vacation packages and drop another $100 million in pocket change while they're here. James McManus, CBS News, Daytona Beach.
And that's the news. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News, New York. Dan Rather will be back tomorrow. Good night.
Welcome to one of the coldest places on the planet, Fort Perry. Up here, a cold or flu can stop you in your tracks. That's why this geologist keeps a wonder drug on hand. One that reduces fever fast, relieves aches. What is it? Bayer aspirin. With a Tolerate micro-coating that makes it easy to swallow.
For aches and fever, nothing you can buy works better.
Bayer, the wonder drug that works wonders. Also in maximum strength.
Vladimir! Where is Comrade Petrenko?
What is commotion?
This beer Petrenko buys for embassy.
Meisterbrow, expensive capitalist beer.
Yet, our operatives tell me is not expensive. Only tastes expensive.
Then what he's doing with money he says he spends on beer?
I want to buy big American automobile with tail fins.
Meisterbrow, it only tastes expensive.
Sears National Hardware Sale. Save 50% on this Craftsman 99-piece tool set. Now $88. These Craftsman screwdriver, adjustable wrench, and locking plier sets, and Craftsman 100-foot steel tape, just $12.99 each. And save on Easy Living flat paint. Now $9.97 a gallon. You'll find more tough hardware at hard-to-beat prices now through March 16th.
There's more for your life at Sears.
Mario Cuomo talks politics and more information on breast cancer. Tomorrow on the CBS Morning News.
Watch it in the morning. Use it all day.
This is CBS.